Do you know how to survive the Dearg Due? Well, Dearg Dú Agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School, and I am doing a series of explorations diving into Ireland's mythology and looking for the creatures, the monsters, the beasts, those weird, wonderful, magical, otherworldly, or in some cases, horrific stories. And one I have come across, which is in my own locality here in Waterford, Ireland, is the tale of the Dearg Due. Now, it is an interesting and awkward one, and there's a lot of more modern content around it, but I did go digging for older content and found it hard to come by. And so when we talk about the Dearg Dú, what we are talking about is an undead woman who committed suicide and came back from the dead and now has a hunger upon her to consume the life force of others. Now, it may seem very similar and may seem like something that you would have heard more commonly linked with Ireland through Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. But even Dracula, when we break that down, the language of that, we have Dracula, which is the Irish words for bad or evil blood. When we look at Dearg Dú, though, we have Dearg being the word for red, of course, and then Dú, spelled D-U-E, is for an owing or for a place. But going by a resource I heartily recommend, and I have it right here, is a Dictionary of Fairies by Morgan Daimler, whose translations I am a big fan of and who I rely on in many ways. Morgan suggests that it's not D-U-E, but D-U fodda. And D-U fodda translates from, in Old Irish, not modern Irish, in Old Irish as evil or darkness. So it's possible and suggested by Morgan that the Dearg Dú is not the red owing or the red bloodsucker, as some people would suggest, but it's actually this red evil or red darkness. So, as the story goes, there was a young, beautiful woman in County Waterford in Ireland. And though she came from a very wealthy family, her heart belonged to only one person, and that was a local peasant man. And she would flee all of her attempts from her parents to organize and arrange things in order to spend time with the person that she loved most. Alas, she didn't manage to escape. It doesn't end happily. It's not a happy ever after with couples eloping. And this, it is tragedy ever after because her parents marry her off to an old, cruel, wicked man for the money. And he doesn't treat her kindly. He is said to have abused her and kept her locked away and just kept her alive in order to maintain that relationship of money. But she had hope in her heart because all of the time she had messages or secret messages from her lover, the peasant boy, who reassured her that he would come to save her and spirit her away. And so she waited and waited and waited. But no rescue came. So when her heart was filled no longer with hope and joy and love, but instead with misery and anger, she took her own life. So in doing so, she was buried. She was taken away and put in a grave, and it wasn't even an ostentatious grave, despite the wealth of her husband, despite the wealth of her family. She was cast aside and put in pretty much a pauper's grave. And that's where you might think the story ends, but it doesn't. It said that the young lover, who eventually found out that she had died and been buried, came to the graveside and prayed and pleaded with love for her over her body. But it wasn't love that brought her back, it was revenge. So on the anniversary, a year to the exact day from when she was killed and placed in her grave, she shook all the dirt off herself and she came back. And she first returned back to the house of her husband, the wealthy man, and found that he had quickly taken not just one wife, but many, and he was engaged in horrible, terrible, unspeakable things with them as he had done to her. And in a rage, she flew in to him and tore into him, draining the life force from him, but then covering herself in his blood. She then visited her parents and took the life force from them as well. And not satisfied with that, she went on a rampage of blood and slaying. When the dawn came, she had been returned to her grave. And when the local people found out about this, they decided that the only thing they could do was bury her over again. But this time they placed stones upon her grave. Still, a year to the day afterwards, despite the stones, she is said to have come back. And this time the thirst and the hunger was such upon her that either, the story goes, she would take target the cruel and the unjust and the abusive people, or she would target the young, the innocent, and the beautiful. Either way, people were found to have been drained of their life or drained of their blood. And every year now in Waterford, it is said that still people go to the grave of the Dearg Due and place stones upon it to try and ensure that she will not rise again. So it's interesting to find these stories. As I've said, there's a lot of kind of crossover with other more modern cultural myths about vampires and blood drinkers, etc., and undead entities. Um, White ladies, like the ghost form and expressions that we have. There's even other Scottish versions. I'm not going to pronounce this right, called it Bovan Sith or Sith, which are vampiric women who come and prey upon men. Ireland does also have the Leannán she, as in the woman of fairy lovers. And though some stories are about amicable, loving relationships between women of the other world and people of this world, not all of them are so. And some Leannán she are said to be rather aggressive. And yeah, so we have our own associations. But the Dearg Due falls into a very unique one because it is almost like there is this additional cultural perspective that has evolved and changed. When we go back looking for older mythology around it, we don't find anything because it's not a class of fairy, it's not a class of she, it's not one of the other crowd. It is a mortal person who has come back from the dead. It is an undead person who isn't just a generic type of entity, it is a specific person buried in Waterford. So my research, you may think, has only just ended, but in fact, it has only just begun because I think I need to find out where the grave of the Dearg Dú is and maybe arrange a little pilgrimage with a stone to bring it along the way. So, as ever, thank you very much for popping by and enjoying the stories and the mythology of our culture here in Ireland. We have a whole lot of free resources available at the Irish Pagan School. All you got to do is go to irishpagan.school/free and pick up a whole lot of more references there, resources, guides, readings, guided journeys, classes, full classes you can actually just take. And until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Take really good care at this time of year. Until next time, Slán. Goodbye.